Okay, so today we are diving into a story that's, well, it's pretty staggering. It forces you to really grapple with ideas of luck, fate, survival.
Absolutely. We're talking about the only person officially recognized by the Japanese government as a survivor of both atomic bombings, Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
A nijyuu hibakusha, they call it. Twice bombed person.
That's right. His name was Tsutomu Yamaguchi. He was a marine engineer working for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries at the time.
And he lived through two events that, instantly vaporized hundreds of thousands of people within just 3 days.
It's almost impossible to comprehend, calling him maybe the unluckiest lucky man in history. It sounds strange, but it almost fits, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the only way I can sort of frame it in my head.
And it's important, right off the bat, to mention for you listening that while Yamaguchi is the only officially recognized double survivor, sources do suggest there might have been, well, at least 165 people who were affected by both blasts.
Okay, so he wasn't strictly the only one, but the one formally acknowledged.
Exactly. His recognition came much later, and it gave him this platform, made him the public face of that almost unbelievable statistic.
So our mission today is to follow his journey, minute by minute almost, through those days, and then, crucially, use his experience and that of another survivor, Sadao Hirano, to explore the lasting effects, the physical, the psychological.
And the generational effects, too. Because the impact didn't stop in 1945. You'll see why this isn't just history. It's a continuing warning.
Right. Let's start where it began for him, Hiroshima, August 6th, 1945.
Okay. So Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima, but he didn't live there. He was on a 3-month business trip.
Designing oil tankers for Mitsubishi.
That's the one. And this particular Monday, August 6th, was supposed to be his last day there. He was actually packed, ready to go, heading to the train station to finally get back home to his family in Nagasaki.
But then something stopped him, a really small detail, right?
Tiny. He realized he'd forgotten his hanko. It's a personal identification stamp, very common in Japan, used for official documents and things. He'd left it back at the office.
So he had to turn around, go back for it.
He had to turn back. And that simple act, that bit of forgetfulness about a stamp.
It put him right in the path of history. I mean, I have to pause on that. Forgetting a stamp determined whether he lived or died in that instant. The irony is just immense.
It's staggering, absolutely. So because he turned back, at 8:15 that morning, he's walking near the Mitsubishi shipyards, towards the docks.
And he looks up.
He looks up, sees the American B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay overhead. He noticed 2 small parachutes deploying from it.
And then came the light. How did you describe it?
He talked about a strong orangey flash, said it was much lighter than summer sunshine, also like a blinding magnesium-esque white light.
That description, magnesium, just searing.
And that light, ironically, might have saved him because his air raid training immediately kicked in. He didn't hesitate.
He just dove.
Dove instinctively into a nearby ditch or irrigation channel covering his face. Standard procedure, but in that moment, life-saving.
And where was he in relation to the blast?
About 3 kilometers, so just under 2 miles from ground zero. Close enough to be severely affected, but just far enough, maybe, with that quick action.
To survive the initial blast, yeah.
Yeah.
But the damage was still severe.
Oh, absolutely. The blast ruptured his eardrums. He had severe third-degree burns all over the left side of his upper body, the side exposed to the heat rays, and temporary blindness.
Just horrific injuries. And then he had to find a way out.
Right. Somehow he managed to find 2 colleagues, Akira Iwanaga and Kuniyoshi Sato, who'd also survived. They spent that first night together in an air raid shelter.
Okay.
But getting out of the city the next day, August 7th, the accounts are just nightmarish. To reach the train station, they had to navigate through, well, the sources say they were forced to wade through a river literally filled with corpses.
Oh my God, wading through bodies.
Can you even imagine the sheer trauma of that walk, pushing through the dead just to find a way home?
It's unthinkable, the smell, the sight.
Yet somehow, driven by shock, adrenaline, the need to get back to Nagasaki, he did it. He got to the station, found a train heading south.
And he arrives back home on August 7th. Heavily bandaged, badly burned, probably already feeling the effects of radiation sickness.
Definitely. But here's the next unbelievable turn. Despite everything, despite his condition, he felt he had to report for work.
Back to Mitsubishi on August 9th. Seriously.
On the morning of August 9th. It speaks to that wartime mentality, perhaps. Duty above all else, even his own agony.
So he goes into the office. What happens?
He's there, around 11:00 a.m., trying to explain to his supervisor what he saw in Hiroshima. trying to make him understand the scale of it.
Which must have sounded impossible, one bomb destroying a whole city.
Exactly. His supervisor just couldn't comprehend it. He apparently yelled at Yamaguchi, bandaged and clearly suffering, accused him of being crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. Told him he must have imagined it, that a single bomb couldn't possibly do that much damage. The concept is just too alien.
And this is where the story takes that final, almost cruel twist of fate.
Right then, at that exact moment, while his boss is dismissing the horror of the first bomb,
The second one hits.
the American bomber Boxcar drops the Fat Man plutonium bomb over Nagasaki, and Yamaguchi sees it again.
That same flash.
He described that same blinding white flash, and his first thought, chillingly, was, I thought the mushroom cloud had followed me from Hiroshima.
Wow. Like it was personally pursuing him.
A terrifying thought. This time, again, he was about 3 kilometers from ground zero.
Same distance, roughly.
Roughly. But this time, he was inside the Mitsubishi office building. He was likely shielded by the building's reinforced concrete, maybe a stairwell. Plus, Nagasaki's hilly terrain offered some protection, compared to Hiroshima's flat delta.
So miraculously, he was largely unhurt by the second explosion itself.
Physically, from the blast, yes,
Oh.
relatively unscathed this time. His immediate concern was his family.
Of course. He rushed home.
Rushed home through the devastated city. He found his wife, Hisako, and their infant son. They had survived, thankfully, mostly protected from the blast itself.
But there was another danger, wasn't there? The black rain.
Yes. His wife, Hisako, was caught outside shortly after the blast and got, as it was later described, soaked in black rain and was poisoned.
Can you explain what that black rain actually was? It sounds ominous.
It was extremely dangerous. It was essentially radioactive fallout, a mix of ash, soot, dust, and highly radioactive particles sucked up into the mushroom cloud.
And then it falls back down.
Exactly. As this greasy, sticky black rain, it contaminated everything, water sources, food, the ground. For Hisako, that direct exposure was, well, it sealed her fate in many ways, leading to long-term health problems.
And Yamaguchi. He survived 2 blasts, but the radiation exposure must have caught up with him then.
Oh, absolutely, the double dose. In the week following the Nagasaki bombing, he completely collapsed. He suffered from a dangerously high fever, continuous vomiting, severe diarrhea, and his hair fell out in clumps.
Classic signs of acute radiation sickness.
Textbook symptoms. He was incredibly ill. It's a miracle he survived that period, too.
Oh, yeah. This really brings us to the broader experience of the hibakusha, the survivors. The suffering didn't end when the fires went out.
Not at all. Let's maybe talk briefly about the science of it. The bomb's energy is released in 3 main ways. Intense heat rays, the physical blast wave, and then the radiation.
The invisible killer.
In many ways, yes. The gamma rays and neutron radiation attack the body on a cellular level. They particularly damage cells that divide rapidly, like in your bone marrow and digestive tract.
Which explains the immediate symptoms. The vomiting, diarrhea.
And critically, the drop in blood cell counts. White blood cells plummet, destroying your immune system. Red blood cells drop, causing anemia. Simple infections could become fatal. Bleeding wouldn't stop easily.
So they were fighting horrific burns and their own bodies shutting down internally.
Precisely. And even if you survived the acute phase, the long-term effects were waiting. Significantly higher risks of developing leukemia, thyroid cancer, stomach cancer, lung cancer, many types of solid tumors, often decades later.
To really grasp the human cost, maybe we should bring in the story of Sadao Hirano. You mentioned him earlier. He's an ordinary survivor from Hiroshima.
Yes, his story gives another perspective on that immediate aftermath. He was about 1.2 miles from the hypocenter in Hiroshima, a teenager at the time, I believe.
What did he describe seeing?
He described himself and his classmates looking like monsters. Clothes shredded, skin hanging off from severe burns, just unrecognizable figures wandering in shock.
And medical help. Was there any?
Virtually none initially. Hospitals were destroyed or overwhelmed. Doctors and nurses were killed or injured themselves. People were left to fend for themselves, often with horrific injuries.
Which led to these desperate home remedies.
Heartbreakingly so. Hirano's mother, with no access to medicine, tried to treat his severe burns with whatever she could find. Cooking oil, juice from vegetables.
And did you mention something even more shocking?
Yes. The ashes of cremated human bones. Collected from the mass cremations happening all over the city, she applied that to his wounds, trying anything to soothe the pain or help them heal.
Just unimaginable desperation. Did his burns ever properly heal?
Not entirely. The burn on his right arm formed a massive keloid scar, that thick, raised, fibrous tissue. It was incredibly painful and so rigid it permanently stopped him from fully extending his arm.
For his whole life.
For his whole life. He spoke very powerfully about it, saying something like, "No one could understand the pain unless one experiences it. I have endured such pain for more than 60 years. That constant physical reminder."
And then beyond the physical pain, there was this social burden they carried. Ostracization.
A huge part of the hibakusha experience. They were often avoided, feared, discriminated against.
Why? Just because of the scars?
Partly that, the visible differences, but also because of a deep-seated, irrational fear that radiation sickness was somehow contagious, like you could catch it from them.
Which is completely untrue scientifically.
Absolutely untrue. But the fear was real. It made it hard for survivors to find jobs, to get married. People worried about potential birth defects in their children. It was a terrible stigma.
Hirano experienced this directly.
Yes, he worked at a bank later in life. He said he got tired of people staring at his scarred arm, whispering. So he started proactively telling customers, "Yes, I am a survivor of the atomic bombing," just to address the elephant in the room, to stop the staring.
Having to explain your trauma over and over again just to navigate daily life, that's a heavy burden.
It really is. And tragically, as we touched on, that burden wasn't just theirs. It extended across generations. We look back at Yamaguchi's family.
Right. His wife, Hisako, who was exposed to the black rain.
She died at age 88 from kidney and liver cancer, which were believed to be linked to her radiation exposure.
And their children.
Their son, who was just an infant in Nagasaki when the bomb hit, died relatively young at 59, also from cancer. And the sources say all three of their children reported suffering from various health problems throughout their lives, which they attributed to their parents' exposure.
So the bomb's effects echoed down the family line. It wasn't just an event in 1945, it became an inherited shadow.
A devastating legacy. Now, Yamaguchi himself, for many years after the war, he actually tried to just live his life, put it behind him as much as possible.
He didn't talk about it much initially.
Not widely, no.
Yeah.
He did get official recognition as a Nagasaki survivor back in 1957, which was important for accessing medical benefits. But he wasn't an activist then.
What changed?
It seems to have been later in life, when he was in his 80s. He started to see his survival differently, not just luck, but
destiny.
That's the word he used. He felt it was his destiny to survive, specifically so he could speak out against nuclear weapons.
So he found his voice late in life.
He really did. He became a very vocal advocate for nuclear disarmament. He wrote a book, poetry about his experiences. He was prominently featured in that 2006 documentary, Twice Survived.
What was his core message, would you say?
I think one of his most powerful quotes cuts right to it. "The reason that I hate the atomic bomb is because of what it does to the dignity of human beings."
That's powerful. It wasn't just about the physical destruction.
No, it was about the dehumanization, how it turns people into statistics, into medical specimens. He also spoke about his fate, saying, "I should be dead, but it was my fate to keep on living."
And this sense of purpose led him to seek that formal double recognition.
Yes, in 2009, he officially applied for and received recognition as a survivor of both Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Why was that important to him so late in his life?
He said it himself.
Yeah.
He wanted the official record to stand so it can tell the younger generation the horrifying history of the atomic bombings even after I die. He wanted his unique status to be a permanent testament.
A living piece of evidence against these weapons.
Exactly. Tsutomu Yamaguchi died in January 2010. He was 93 years old. The cause of death was stomach cancer.
Another potential link to the radiation.
Quite possibly. And his final plea, something he reiterated often, was just simple and profound. "I sincerely hope that there will not be a third."
A third use of a nuclear weapon in war.
Precisely.
There was a bit of controversy after his death, wasn't there? Something involving the BBC.
Ah, yes. It's a strange and slightly uncomfortable postscript. A BBC comedy quiz show, QI, referred to him as the unluckiest man in the world and made some jokes about the absurdity of surviving 2 atomic bombs.
That sounds incredibly insensitive.
It caused quite an uproar. There were official protests from the Japanese embassy in the UK, and the BBC did apologize. But Yamaguchi's daughter made a really poignant point about it.
What did she say?
She said it showed how the sheer horror of the bombings, the reality of the suffering, the long-term impact, still wasn't truly understood around the world. That it could be reduced to a punchline.
Yeah, that highlights a massive gap in understanding, doesn't it?
It really does. And it brings us back to that central contradiction of his life, this extreme proximity to unimaginable death, twice over.
Coupled with this incredibly long life, this destiny he felt to advocate for peace.
Exactly. His survival became this prolonged, painful, living testimony against nuclear weapons, a warning embodied in one person.
And it's a warning that feels especially relevant when you remember the context of 1945. The U.S. wasn't done after Nagasaki, were they?
No. Our sources point out that the U.S. industrial capacity at that time could produce something like 2 or 3 more atomic bombs per month.
2 or 3 more every month. The potential for continued destruction was enormous. We were right on the edge.
Right on the brink of potentially wiping out city after city. Yamaguchi's survival, in a way, stands against that potential escalation.
He often asked that question, didn't he? Why does the world keep building these things?
He did. Given everything we know, given the testimony of survivors like him and Hirano, given the generational suffering, why continue down this path?
So the final thought maybe for you listening is this. If Yamaguchi saw his survival as a warning against a third nuclear catastrophe, are we listening?
What current global tensions, what arms developments suggest that maybe the world is still failing to fully heed the warning carried by the man who survived 2 atomic bombs? That's the heavy question his life leaves us with.